cold spots or saw the figures tell their stories at dinner parties, their voices hushed, as if speaking too loudly might summon something back. And that's the story of the ghosts of Flight 401, folks. A tragedy that left scars on the earth and echoes in the skies, whispers of the past that refuse to fade. It's a reminder that some events are so powerful, they linger beyond the grave, reaching out to those who fly the same routes, sit in the same seats. If you're ever on a late-night flight and feel a cold spot, hear a knock, or see a figure in the aisle, maybe just look the other way, because some passengers might not be on the manifest. So, what do you think? Ever had a creepy moment on a plane or felt like something was watching you from just beyond sight? Drop it in the comments. And next time you're flying, maybe double check the landing gear, just in case. Skydiving photographer without a parachute. Hey everybody, if you're into stories that are strange, dark, and mysterious, this one's gonna get your heart racing. It's a fan favorite, and for good reason. It's pure adrenaline, with a twist so wild you'll be on the edge of your seat. We're talking about a skydiving photographer who found himself in a situation no one could prepare for, fighting to survive against impossible odds. This is a tale of courage, quick thinking, and a miracle that defies explanation. So, buckle up, maybe take a deep breath, and let's dive into the story of the skydiving photographer without a parachute. The setup, picture this. It's 2015, and we're in the wide-open skies above Arizona. The desert stretches out below rock canyons, cacti dotting the landscape, and a blazing sun overhead. This is prime skydiving country, where drop zones attract thrill seekers from all over the world. Our story centers on Ryan Carter, a 29-year-old professional skydiving photographer from Tucson. Ryan's not just any photographer. He's the guy who jumps out of planes with a camera strapped to his helmet, capturing heart-stopping shots of skydivers midair. It's a job that requires nerves of steel, lightning-fast reflexes, and a love for living on the edge. Ryan was good at what he did really good. He'd been skydiving since he was 18, logging over 1,000 jumps. He knew every safety protocol, every piece of gear, and every trick to stay alive at 120 miles per hour. His clients were everyone from first-timers to elite skydiving teams, and his photos were legendary vivid shots of divers soaring against the desert sky, their parachutes blooming like flowers. Ryan lived for the rush, the moment when the plane door opened and the wind roared in his ears. On this particular day, a crisp October morning, Ryan was booked for a big job. A group of 12 skydivers, part of a stunt team, wanted him to photograph a complex formation jump. The plan was to leap from 0 feet, link up midair to form a star pattern, and hold it for as long as possible before deploying their parachutes. Ryan's job was to circle the group, snapping photos from every angle, then pull his own chute and land safely. It was a routine gig for him, nothing he hadn't done dozens of times before. The jump? The team loaded into a twin-engine Cessna at a small airfield outside Tucson. The plane was loud, the cabin cramped, but the mood was electric. The skydivers were pumped, joking and checking their altimeters, helmets, and parachutes. Ryan double-checked his rig, a main parachute, a reserve chute, and his camera setup, a high-end DSLR mounted to his helmet. He wore a jumpsuit with extra padding to protect him during high-speed maneuvers. Everything was in order. The plane climbed to 0 feet, the desert sprawling below like a patchwork quilt. The pilot gave the signal, and the door opened, letting in a blast of cold air. Ryan was the first out. As always, she needed to position himself to capture the group as they jumped. He gave a thumbs up, shouted, "See you in the sky," and leaped out. The freefall was instant, the wind screaming past him as he plummeted at terminal velocity. He loved this part the weightless rush, the world a blur below. The stunt team followed, diving out in a tight formation. Ryan maneuvered like a pro, using his arms and legs to steer through the air, his camera clicking away. The divers linked up, forming a perfect star, their colorful jumpsuits vivid against the blue sky. Ryan circled them, snapping shot after shot, his heart pounding with excitement. It was going perfectly until it wasn't. The crisis, at about 0 feet, Ryan reached for his parachute ripcord, a handle on his chest that would deploy his main chute. He pulled. Nothing happened. He pulled again, harder. Still nothing. His heart skipped a beat. A stuck ripcord was every skydiver's nightmare, but Ryan stayed calm. He'd trained for this. He reached for his reserve parachute, a backup chute packed for emergencies. He yanked the handle. Nothing. The reserve was jammed too. Now, Ryan was in serious trouble. He was falling at 120 miles per hour, with less than 30 seconds before he'd hit the ground. The desert was rushing up fast, the red rocks and cacti growing sharper by the second. He glanced at the stunt team, who were pulling their chutes one by one, their canopies blooming above him. They didn't know he was in trouble. There was no way to signal them in freefall. Ryan was alone, hurtling towards certain death. He fought the panic rising in his chest. His training kicked in, and he started troubleshooting. He checked the ripcord again, tugging with all his strength, but it wouldn't budge. The reserve handle was stuck too, caught on something in the harness. Ryan twisted his body, trying to shake it loose, but the wind was too strong, pinning him in place. His altimeter beeped frantically, warning him he was below 30 feet. Time was running out. Then, out of nowhere, a crazy idea hit him. Ryan remembered a story from his skydiving instructor about body surfing, using your body to slow your fall by spreading out like a starfish, maximizing air resistance. It wasn't much, but it might buy him a few seconds. He spread his arms and legs wide, flattening his body against the air. The wind roared louder, pushing against him, but it worked. He felt his descent slow slightly. Not enough to save him, but enough to give him a fighting chance. The miracle. At 20 feet, Ryan spotted the drop zone below a flat, sandy patch near the airfield. He angled his body, aiming for it. The ground was coming up fast, too fast. He knew a hard landing could kill him, even with a parachute. Without one, his odds were grim. But Ryan wasn't giving up. He thought of his family, his mom, his sister, his girlfriend waiting back home. Not today, he whispered to himself. At 10 feet, something inexplicable happened. Ryan felt a sudden jolt, like an invisible force pushing against him. The air seemed to thicken, slowing his fall even more. He didn't know if it was a freak wind gust or something else, but he wasn't questioning it. He kept his body spread, his eyes locked on the drop zone. At 500 feet, he braced himself, tucking his chin and curling his knees to protect his spine. The ground was seconds away. Ryan hit the sand with a bone-jarring thud. Pain exploded through his body, legs, back, shoulders. He rolled, tumbling across the desert, his camera shattering against a rock. When he finally stopped, he lay there, gasping, staring at the sky. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. The aftermath? The stunt team landed nearby, rushing to Ryan's side. They thought he was dead, but when they saw him moving, they started shouting for help. Paramedics from the airfield arrived, stunned to find him conscious. Ryan had broken both legs, fractured his pelvis, and cracked several ribs, but he was breathing. Doctors later said it was a miracle he survived a combination of his body surfing technique, a possible updraft, and landing in soft sand instead of rock. The odds of surviving a 14-foot fall without a parachute were less than 1 in a million. Ryan spent months in the hospital, enduring surgeries and physical therapy. His skydiving days were over, but he didn't care. He was alive, and that was enough. He later learned his parachute rig had a rare defecta tangled deployment line that jammed both the main and reserve chutes. The manufacturer issued a recall, and Ryan's story became a cautionary tale in the skydiving world. But Ryan never forgot that strange jolt in the air, that moment when the wind seemed to catch him. He didn't talk about it much, but privately, he wondered if something or someone had intervened. His girlfriend swore it was his guardian angel. Ryan wasn't sure, but he started wearing a small cross necklace, just in case. And that's the story of the skydiving photographer without a parachute, folks. A tale of survival against all odds, with a twist that makes you wonder if there's more to this world than we can see. If you're ever jumping out of a plane, double-check your gear, and maybe say a quick prayer just to be safe. So, what do you think? Ever had a moment where you beat the odds in a way you can't explain? Drop it in the comments. And next time you're looking up at the sky, maybe give a nod to Ryan. He's proof that sometimes miracles happen at 120 miles per hour. The Gray Blanket. Hey everybody, if you're into stories that are strange, dark, and mysterious, this one's gonna burrow deep into your mind and refuse to leave. Fans call it a living nightmare, and trust me, they're not kidding. It's the kind of tale that feels like it's ripped straight from your darkest dreams. We're heading to a remote village in Japan where a young woman's quiet life turned into something so unsettling, it's hard to shake off. This is the story of the Gray Blanket, a tale of fear, mystery, and something that might not be human at all. So, grab a warm drink, keep a light on, and let's dive into a story that's as creepy as it gets. The setup, picture this. It's 2017, and we're in a tiny village in Aomori Prefecture, northern Japan. Think winding dirt roads, old wooden houses with sloping roofs, and dense forests that seem to swallow the sunlight. The village is quiet, almost frozen in time, the kind of place where the loudest sound is the wind rustling through the pines. This is where Hana Sato lives, a 24-year-old teacher who left the chaos of Tokyo for a simpler life. Hana's a city girl at heart used to neon lights and crowded trains, but she's fallen in love with the countryside's peace. The crisp mountain air, the starry nights, the way the peaks loom like silent guardian sits a world away from her old life. Hana rents a small, traditional house on the edge of the village, where the forest begins. It's a modest place of sliding paper doors, tatami mats that smell faintly of straw, and a tiny wood stove to keep the chill at bay. The house is old, its beams creaking with every gust of wind, but Hana makes it her own. She fills it with books, potted plants, and a cozy futon where she reads late into the night. The landlord, an elderly woman named Mrs. Kimura, is kind but stern. When Hana moves in, Mrs. Kimura gives her a warning. "Don't go into the forest at night. It's not safe." Her eyes are serious, almost haunted. Hana nods, thinking it's just old superstition. She's not one for ghost stories. At least, not yet. One chilly autumn evening, Hana's walking home from the village's elementary school, where she teaches English. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She passes a small flea market in the village square, just a few rickety tables with old clothes, chipped teacups, and dusty knickknacks. At one stall, run by a quiet old man with deep-set eyes, she spots something odd. A gray wool blanket, neatly folded, sitting alone on the table. It's plain, almost boring, but something about it pulls her in. The wool is unnaturally soft, like stroking a cloud, and it seems to shimmer faintly in the fading light, as if it's catching the last rays of the sun. The old man notices her interest and speaks in a low, raspy voice. "That one's special," he says. "Keeps you warm no matter how cold it gets. Only 500 yen. That's about $5 a steal." Hana buys it, thinking it'll be perfect for the frosty nights ahead. She tucks it under her arm and heads home, unaware that she's just invited something into her life. The first night? That night, Hana lays the gray blanket over her futon. The house is cold, the wind rattling the paper doors, so she's grateful for the extra warmth. She snuggles under the blanket, and it's incredible. It's heavy but comforting, wrapping her in a cocoon of soft wool that feels like a warm embrace. She falls asleep faster than usual, the distant whispers of the forest fading into silence. But around 2 a.m., she bolts awake, her heart pounding like a drum. The room is freezing, her breath puffing out in clouds. The blanket is still on her, but it feels different. Not warm anymore, but heavy, almost suffocating, like it's pressing her into the futon, pinning her down. Hana sits up, shoving the blanket off. Her skin prickles with unease. She glances around the room. Everything looks normal. The paper doors are closed, the stove is cold, and her lantern casts a soft glow over her books and plants. But the air feels thick, charged with a strange energy, like the moment before a storm. She notices a faint smell, like wet earth or mold, lingering in the room. It's coming from the blanket. She lifts it, checking for dampness or dirt, but it's dry, clean, almost too perfect. Shaking her head, she tells herself it's just her imagination. She's tired, stressed from adjusting to village life. She pulls the blanket back over her and tries to sleep. That's when the dreams start. In her dream, Hana's standing in the forest behind her house. It's pitch black, the trees towering like giants, their branches clawing at the starry sky. She's barefoot, the ground cold and slick with moss. In the distance, she sees a figura, gray, shapeless mass, like a person wrapped in a blanket. It's motionless, but she feels its gaze heavy and unyielding. Her legs won't move, rooted to the ground. The figure drifts closer, silent, and she hears a sound, a low, hissing whisper. Not quite words, but sharp enough to make her skin crawl. She wakes up gasping, her lantern flickering. The blanket is still there, warm and heavy, but now it feels alive, like it's watching her. Things get stranger. The next morning, Hana's shaken but tries to brush it off. Dreams are just dreams, right? She heads to school, teaching her classes, but she's off her game. She forgets students' names, drops her chalk, spaces out during lessons. Her kids notice, asking if she's okay. She forces a smile, but her mind keeps drifting to the blanket, to that gray figure in her dream. By evening, she's exhausted and heads home, dreading the thought of sleeping under that blanket again. But it's so cold, and the futon feels empty without it. She hesitates, then pulls it over her, promising herself it's just one more night. The dream returns, worse this time. She's back in the forest, the air thick with fog. The gray figure is closer now, its edges blurry, like it's made of smoke. It glides toward her, and the hissing grows louder, forming fractured words she can't understand, sharp, guttural sounds that twist in her mind. She feels a weight on her chest, like something sitting on her, crushing her lungs. She wakes up, heart racing, and the blanket is tangled around her, tighter than it should be, almost knotted. She throws it off, her hands trembling, and notices faint gray marks on her arms, like smudges of ash. They wash off in the sink, but the sight makes her stomach churn. Over the next few days, the weirdness escalates. The blanket starts moving. Not dramatically, but subtly. Hana finds it in strange places, draped over her reading chair, folded neatly at the foot of her futon, even though she's sure she stuffed it in the closet. The moldy, earthy smell grows stronger, clinging to the blanket like a shadow. Her house feels different, too colder, darker, like the lantern's light can't reach the corners anymore. At night, she hears whispers, not just in her dreams, but in the waking world. Soft, hissing sounds, like someone standing just behind her, just out of sight. She spins around, but no one's there. The paper doors rattle, even when there's no wind. Hana's life starts to fall apart. She's barely sleeping, her eyes ringed with dark circles. At school, she's snapping at students, forgetting lessons, losing her patience. Her friend, Eiko, another teacher, pulls her aside one day. "Hana, you look like a ghost," she says. "What's going on?" Hana hesitates, then spills everything, the blanket, the dreams, the whispers, the moving shadows. Aiko's face goes pale. "Get rid of it," she says, her voice low. "My grandmother used to talk about objects like that, things that carry spirits. They latch onto you, feed on you." Hana tries to laugh, but it comes out weak. Deep down, she knows Aiko's right. Something's wrong with that blanket. Digging deeper. Desperate for answers, Hana goes back to the village square, looking for the old man from the flea market. But his stall is gone, like it was never there. She asks around, and a shopkeeper tells her the man only shows up once a month, always with strange things, to sell items that seem to vanish as quickly as they appear. No one knows his name or where he lives. Some villagers whisper he's not from Aomori at all, that he's tied to the forest somehow. Hana's heart sinks. She's stuck with this thing, and it's not letting go. She visits Mrs. Kimura, her landlord, hoping for some clue. When Hana mentions the gray blanket, Mrs. Kimura's eyes widen, and she grips the edge of her table. "You didn't bring that into my house, did you?" she whispers, her voice trembling. She tells Hana a story from the village's past, one she heard as a child. Decades ago, a woman named Yuki lived in Hana's house. Yuki was a recluse, shunned by the village for practicing strange rituals in the forest offerings to spirits, chants under the moon. One winter, she was found dead, frozen in her house, wrapped in a gray blanket. Villagers said her spirit never left, that it clung to the blanket, seeking someone new to haunt. The blanket disappeared after her death, but every few years it finds someone, a traveler, a villager, someone who doesn't know better. Those who take it don't stay long. Hana's blood runs cold. She thinks back to the old man's words, "Keeps you warm, no matter how cold it gets." Was he warning her or luring her? She rushes home, her mind racing. The blanket is waiting, folded neatly on her futon, even though she's sure she left it in the closet. The air in the house is heavy, the smell overpowering. She grabs a flashlight and checks every corner, half expecting to see that gray figure from her dreams. The whispers start again, louder now, circling her like a predator. She swears she sees a shadow move across the paper doors, but when she looks, it's gone. The breaking point. That night, Hana can't take it anymore. She grabs the blanket, stuffs it into a trash bag, and drives to a river a few miles away. The moon is full, casting an eerie glow over the water. She plans to throw the blanket in, let the current take it, but as she lifts the bag, she hears the hissing, louder than ever, like a swarm of angry insects. The bag feels heavier, almost alive, pulling against her grip. The air turns icy, her breath fogging in front of her. She drops the bag, and it hits the ground with a thud, the blanket spilling out. For a moment, she sees Ida, gray, shapeless figure, rising from the wool like smoke, its edges blurring into the night. The hissing forms a word, "Stay." Hana screams and runs, not looking back. She drives to Aiko's house, sobbing, and spends the night there. The next morning, she returns to the river with Aiko, but the bag and blanket are gone. The ground is bare, no sign of them, like they were never there. Hana's shaking, but a small part of her feels relieved. Maybe it's over. The aftermath? Hana moves back to Tokyo the next week, leaving the village and the house behind. She tells herself it's a fresh start, but she's not the same. She's jumpy, always checking corners, waking up at 2 a.m., expecting to hear whispers. She avoids blankets, sticking to thin sheets, and keeps every light on at night. Aiko stays in touch, saying the village has been quiet since Hana left, but Mrs. Kimura refuses to rent the house again. Some villagers claim they've seen a gray shape in the forest at night, drifting among the trees, its edges shimmering like moonlight on water. Years later, Hana stumbles across a blog post from another part of Japan. Someone bought a gray blanket at a flea market, cheap and oddly soft. They describe the same dreams forests, shadows, hissing whispers. They mention waking up with gray marks on their skin, finding the blanket in strange places. The post cuts off mid-sentence with no further updates. Hana shudders, wondering where the blanket is now, who it's found next. Sometimes, at night, she feels a faint weight on her chest, hears a distant hiss, like the forest is calling her back. And that's the story of the gray blanket, folks. A simple purchase that turned into a nightmare, a reminder that some things carry more than just weight, they carry intent. If you're ever at a flea market and see a gray blanket that seems too perfect, too cheap, walk away. Because some objects aren't just objects, they're traps, waiting for someone to claim them. So, what do you think? Ever had a dream that felt too real or brought home something that didn't feel right? Drop it in the comments. And maybe, just maybe, check your blankets tonight. You never know what's woven into the threads. The perfect bait. Hey everybody, if you're into stories that are strange, dark, and mysterious, this one's going to hit you like a punch you didn't see coming. Fans love this tale for its slow build and jaw-dropping twist, and trust me, it's a wild ride. What starts as a relaxing vacation turns into a nightmare so shocking, it'll make you rethink your next getaway. This is the story of the perfect Baida tale of trust, betrayal, and a truth that changes everything. So, grab a snack, maybe check your travel plans, and let's dive into a story that's as deceptive as it is chilling. The setup, picture this. It's 2018, and we're on the sunny shores of Key West, Florida. Think turquoise waves lapping at white sand beaches, palm trees swaying in the breeze, and the smell of salt water and sunscreen in the air. It's the kind of place where you go to forget your worries, sip a cold drink, and let the world fade away. This is where we meet Alex and Mia Carter, a young couple from Chicago, both in their late 20s. Alex is a graphic designer, Mia is a marketing coordinator, and they're the kind of couple who seem to have it all great jobs, a cute apartment, and a love that's been rock solid since college. Life in Chicago was hectic, though. Long hours, endless emails, and winters that felt like they'd never end. So, when Mia's boss gave her a week off, they jumped at the chance for a tropical escape. They booked a fishing trip in Key West, a 5-day adventure on a private charter boat, complete with deep-sea fishing, snorkeling, and lazy days under the sun. It was their dream vacation, a chance to unplug and make memories. They found a charter online, Real Paradise, run by a guy named Captain Mike. The reviews were glowing 5 stars, pictures of happy families holding massive fish, and promises of an unforgettable experience. Alex and Mia were sold. They packed their bags, flew to Florida, and couldn't wait to hit the water. The first day, the couple arrived in Key West on a bright Monday morning, the air warm and salty. They met Captain Mike at the dock-a-tanned, wiry guy in his 50s with a scruffy beard and a wide grin. He was all charm, cracking jokes and offering them cold sodas as they boarded his boat, a 40-foot fishing vessel called the Sea Star. The boat was weathered but clean, with fishing rods lined up along the deck and a small cabin for shade. Mike's deckhand, a quiet guy named Tommy, nodded hello but kept to himself, tinkering with the gear. Alex and Mia felt at ease. This was going to be perfect. The first day was everything they'd hoped for. Mike took them out to the open water, the boat slicing through waves as dolphins trailed in the wake. They fished for hours, reeling in a few snapper and laughing as Mia struggled with a feisty grouper. Mike was a great guide, pointing out good spots and sharing stories about his years on the water. Tommy stayed in the background, cleaning fish and prepping bait, but he was polite enough. By sunset, Alex and Mia were sunburned, happy, and sipping beers as the Sea Star cruised back to shore. They fell asleep in their hotel that night, dreaming of the days ahead. The calm before. The next 2 days were more of the same pure bliss. They caught bigger fish, snorkeled over coral reefs, and even saw a sea turtle glide by. Mike was the perfect host, always ready with a story or a cold drink. He told them about a secret fishing spot, a remote reef called Devil's Point, about 20 miles offshore. "It's tricky to get to," he said, his eyes glinting, "but the fish there are monsters. You up for it?" Alex and Mia were all in. They trusted Mike, and the idea of a hidden gem sounded thrilling. On the 4th day, they set out for Devil's Point. The water was calmer than usual, the sky a perfect blue. The Sea Star hummed along, and Alex and Mia lounged on the deck, snapping selfies and soaking in the sun. Tommy was quieter than usual, his eyes darting to the horizon, but they didn't think much of it. Mike was his usual chatty self, pointing out a flock of pelicans diving for fish. "This is going to be a day you'll never forget," he said, grinning. Alex and Mia nodded, unaware how right he was. As they approached Devil's Point, the vibe shifted. The reef was surrounded by deep, dark water, the kind that looks like it could swallow you whole. The boat rocked gently, but the air felt heavier, like a storm was brewing, even though the sky was clear. Mike dropped anchor, and they started fishing. The bites came fast, huge fish, bigger than anything they'd caught before. Alex reeled in a massive marlin, his arms burning from the fight. Mia cheered, snapping pictures. It was exhilarating, but something felt off. Tommy was nowhere to be seen, and Mike's grin seemed forced, his eyes flicking to the cabin more than usual. The nightmare. That night, Mike suggested they stay anchored at Devil's Point for a moonlight fishing session. "The big ones come out after dark," he said. Alex and Mia were tired but excited, picturing a starry night on the water. They agreed, and Mike handed them beers as the sun set, the sky turning a deep purple. The boat was quiet, the only sounds, the lapping waves and the creak of the deck. Tommy finally appeared, carrying a bucket of bait, but he avoided eye contact, his hands shaking slightly. Around 10 p.m., Mia started feeling woozy. She thought it was the beer or maybe seasickness, but her vision blurred, and her legs felt like jelly. She looked at Alex, who was slumping in his chair, his eyes half closed. "Something's wrong," she mumbled, her words slurring. Before she could stand, she collapsed, the world going black. When Mia woke up, her head was pounding, and her wrists were bound with rope. She was in the boat's cabin, lying on the floor, the air thick with the smell of fish and diesel. Alex was next to her, unconscious, his hands tied too. Panic surged through her. She tried to scream, but her mouth was dry, her voice weak. The cabin door creaked open, and Mike stepped in, his grin gone. His face was cold, his eyes empty. Tommy stood behind him, looking nervous, but silent. "What's going on?" Mia croaked, her heart racing. Mike crouched down, his voice low. "You're the perfect bait," he said. "Rich, young, nobody around. You're worth more than any fish out here." Mia's stomach dropped. She realized they'd been drugged, lured out to this remote spot for something far worse than fishing. Mike explained, almost casually, that he and Tommy worked for a smuggling ring. They used the Sea Star to move drugs, but every so often, they'd pick up cargo people. Tourists who wouldn't be missed right away sold to traffickers for a hefty price. Alex and Mia, with no family in Key West and a week-long trip, were perfect targets. The fight, Mia's mind raced. She had to get them out of this. She pretended to be weaker than she was, slumping against the wall while listening for any chance to act. Alex stirred, groaning, and Mike kicked him hard in the ribs. "Stay down!" he growled. But that was Mike's mistake. The pain snapped Alex awake, adrenaline kicking in. He lunged at Mike, despite his tied hands, knocking him into the cabin wall. Mia seized the moment, scrambling to her feet and grabbing a fishing knife from a nearby table. She slashed at Tommy, who yelped and stumbled back, giving her time to cut Alex's ropes. The cabin was chaos shouts, crashing equipment, the boat rocking wildly. Mike recovered, pulling a gun from his belt, but Alex tackled him again, the two men grappling for control. Mia slashed her own ropes and lunged at Tommy, who was trying to radio for help. She knocked the radio from his hands, shattering it against the floor. Alex managed to wrench the gun from Mike, but in the struggle, it fired. The bullet grazing Mike's shoulder. He screamed, blood soaking his shirt, and fell back. Mia and Alex didn't wait. They bolted for the deck, the night air hitting them like a slap. The boat was still anchored, the dark water stretching endlessly around them. They heard Mike shouting, Tommy scrambling after them. Alex grabbed a flare gun from the deck and fired it into the sky, hoping anyone would see it. Mia found a life raft tethered to the side and started untying it, her hands shaking. "We have to go!" she yelled. Mike burst onto the deck, blood dripping, his face twisted with rage. He lunged at Alex, but Mia swung a fishing gaff, catching him in the leg. He collapsed, cursing, as Alex shoved the life raft into the water. They jumped in, paddling frantically, the Sea Star shrinking behind them. Tommy didn't follow, he was too busy trying to help Mike. The flare burned bright overhead, a red streak against the stars. The aftermath. Hours later, a Coast Guard helicopter spotted the flare and found Alex and Mia drifting in the life raft, exhausted but alive. They were dehydrated, battered, and traumatized, but they'd survived. The Coast Guard raided the Sea Star, arresting Mike and Tommy, who confessed to the smuggling and trafficking operation. The Real Paradise charter was shut down, and investigators uncovered a network that had been targeting tourists for years. Alex and Mia's quick thinking had blown it wide open. Back in Chicago, the couple tried to move on, but the trip changed them. Mia quit her job, unable to handle the stress, and started therapy to cope with the nightmares. Alex sold his camera, swearing off adventure photos. They rarely spoke about Key West, but they kept the flare gun, a reminder of their fight to survive. The media called them heroes, but they didn't feel like it. They just felt lucky. And that's the story of The Perfect Bait, folks. A vacation that seemed like paradise, only to turn into a trap with a twist no one saw coming. If you're planning a trip, check those reviews a little closer. Because sometimes, the perfect getaway is just bait for something much darker. So, what do you think? Ever had a vacation take a turn you didn't expect? Drop it in the comments. And next time you're on a boat, maybe keep an eye on the captain. You never know what's lurking beneath the surface. What I saw in my room still haunts me. Hey everybody, if you're into stories that are strange, dark, and mysterious, this one's gonna sink its claws into you and never let go. It's personal, it's raw, and it's the kind of thing that sticks with you no matter how many years pass. Fans call this a classic, and trust me, it's not hard to see why it's a story from my own childhood, something that happened when I was just a kid, something that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. This is the night I saw something in my room, something that still haunts me all these years later. So, settle in, maybe keep every light in the house on, and let's dive into a tale that's as unsettling as it gets. The setup, picture this. It's 1995, and I'm 10 years old, living in a small town in Massachusetts. Think quiet streets, colonial houses, and fields that stretch out toward the horizon. My family lived on the edge of town in an old, creaky house that seemed to groan with every gust of wind. It was a classic New England home, two stories, weathered clapboard siding, wooden floors that creaked under your feet, and a big, overgrown backyard that bled into a dense forest. The trees out there were tall and gnarled, their branches twisting like fingers reaching for the sky. My parents loved the place, always going on about its character and history. Me? I thought it was creepy. The house always felt off, like it was watching you, waiting for something. But I was a kid, so I pushed the feeling down. Kids do that, right? You tell yourself it's just your imagination running wild. My bedroom was on the second floor, at the end of a long, narrow hallway lined with faded wallpaper. It was a small room, but it was my sanctuary cozy in the way only a kid's room can be. I had a single window that looked out over the backyard and the dark wall of trees beyond. The view was pretty at night, with stars twinkling above the forest, but it also made me uneasy, like something could be staring back from the shadows. My walls were plastered with superhero posters, Spider-Man, Batman, the usual, and my desk was a mess of comic books, action figures, and half-finished drawings. By my bed was a little nightlight shaped like a baseball, its soft orange glow, a constant companion. I wasn't scared of the dark, not really, but that nightlight made me feel safer, like it could keep the monsters at bay. My bed was pushed right up against the wall, under the window, so I could lie there and watch the stars before drifting off. My parents were great, but they were strict about bedtime. Every night at 9 p.m., it was lights out, no arguments. That night, the night it all went down, was just like any other. It was a chilly fall evening, the kind where the air bites your nose and the wind rattles the windows like it's trying to get in. I'd finished my homework, brushed my teeth, and climbed into bed, pulling the blankets up to my chin. My mom came in, her footsteps soft on the creaky floor. She tucked me in, smoothing my hair, and gave me a smile. "Sleep tight, kiddo," she said, flipping off the overhead light. The baseball nightlight glowed softly, casting warm shadows across the room. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. You know that sound. How old houses creak and groan like they're alive, telling stories you don't want to hear. I closed my eyes, letting the wind's hum lull me toward sleep. The night it happened. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but it was late. Really late. The house was dead quiet, except for the faint, mournful hum of the wind outside. Something felt wrong. It was like the air itself had changed, pressing against my skin, making my heart beat a little faster. My body knew something was off before my brain caught up. I opened my eyes, blinking in the dim glow of the nightlight. Everything looked normal me posters, my desk, the clutter of my childhood. But the feeling wouldn't go away, like a weight sitting on my chest. Then I noticed it. The air was heavy, thicker than it should be, like someone had cranked the heat to stifling. And there was a smell faint but unmistakable, like damp earth, old leaves, or something you'd find in a forgotten corner of a basement. It wasn't strong, but it was there, curling into my nose, making my stomach twist. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes, trying to shake off the unease. That's when I heard Ita sound. A faint, scratching noise, slow and deliberate, coming from the corner of the room near the closet. My closet was a tiny, narrow space with a sliding door that never worked right. It was always half open, just enough to let your imagination run wild about what might be hiding inside. I stared at it, my heart starting to pound, the sound growing louder in my ears. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Like nails dragging across wood, slow and intentional, each scrape sending a shiver down my spine. I told myself it was probably a mouse. Old houses have mice, right? But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The sound was too purposeful, like something was trying to get my attention. I reached for my flashlight on the nightstand. Yep, I was that kid who kept a flashlight by the bed just in case and gripped it tightly. My hands were shaking as I aimed the beam at the closet, the light cutting through the orange glow of the nightlight. The half-open door loomed in the shadows, the gap a black void. I held my breath, expecting to see glowing eyes or a scurrying shape. But there was nothing, just a pile of clothes on the floor, my old sneakers, a baseball bat leaning against the wall. I let out a shaky breath, whispering to myself, "You're being stupid. It's nothing." But then I saw it. In the corner of my eye, something moved. Not in the closet, but by the window, right above my bed. My heart stopped. I didn't want to look, didn't want to turn my head, but my eyes flicked to the side, and there it was, a shadow. Not a normal shadow, like from a tree outside or my desk lamp. This was different. It was tall, humanoid, but blurry, like it wasn't fully there. Its edges smudged against the moonlight streaming through the window. It stood perfectly still, blocking the stars. A dark silhouette that seemed to suck the light out of the room. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone, stuck in my throat like a stone. My whole body felt pinned to the bed, my muscles frozen, like the air itself was holding me down. The shadow didn't move, but I could feel it watching me. That's the only way I can describe it, like its gaze was boring into me, heavy and cold, even though I couldn't see a face. The air grew thicker, the damp earth smell stronger, now mixed with something sour, like decay. My nightlight flickered, just for a second, and in that flicker, the shadow shifted. It leaned closer, its blurry form stretching toward me, long arms dangling unnaturally low. I don't know where I found the courage, but I finally moved. My hand fumbled with the flashlight, and I flicked it on, aiming the beam right at the thing. For a split second, I saw it clearly not a shadow, but a figure, tall, impossibly thin, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. Its face wasn't a face, just a blank, pale oval, smooth as bone, with two dark, empty holes where eyes should be. No mouth, no nose, but I swear it was smiling, a cruel, knowing smile that made my blood run cold. The figure shimmered, like heat rising off pavement, then vanished, like it had been sucked into the air itself. I screamed, a raw, desperate sound that tore through the silence. The nightlight flickered again and went out completely, plunging the room into darkness except for my flashlight, which I waved around like a madman, searching for the thing. But it was gone. The air lightened, the smell faded, but my heart was still hammering, my hands trembling so hard I could barely hold the flashlight. My parents burst into the room, the overhead light snapping on. "What's wrong?" my mom yelled, her face pale, her eyes wide with panic. My dad was right behind her, looking ready to fight off an intruder, his fists clenched. I was shaking, babbling incoherently about the figure by the window, the scratching, the smell. They checked the room, pulling open the closet, shining their own flashlight under the bed, even stepping outside to inspect the yard. Nothing. No footprints, no broken locks, no sign anyone had been there. My dad sat on my bed, his voice gentle but firm. "It was just a nightmare, buddy," he said. "You're okay." But I knew it wasn't a dream. I'd been awake. I'd seen it. The days after, that night changed me. I refused to sleep in my room for weeks, maybe months. I'd drag my blanket to the living room and camp out on the couch, the TV on low to drown out the silence. My parents thought I was just spooked, a kid with an overactive imagination. They didn't push me to go back, but I could tell they were worried. My mom started checking on me more, asking if I was okay, if I wanted to talk. I didn't. How do you explain something like that? How do you describe a thing that doesn't make sense, that shouldn't exist? When I finally went back to my room, I was different. I kept the overhead light on all night, the baseball nightlight abandoned in a drawer. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside, made me jump. I'd lie awake, clutching my flashlight, staring at the window, waiting for that shadow to come back. It never did, not like that first night, but the fear stayed. I started noticing small things. The closet door would be open just a crack, even though I'd slammed it shut. The damp earth smell would linger in my room some mornings, faint but there. Once, I found my superhero posters slightly askew, like someone had brushed past them. I told myself it was the wind, the house, anything but that. School wasn't much better. I was distracted, zoning out in class, jumping at sudden noises. My friends noticed, teasing me about being scared of my own shadow. I laughed it off, but it hurt, because they didn't know. They hadn't seen what I'd seen. My parents tried to help. My dad took me fishing, my mom baked my favorite cookies, but nothing could shake the feeling that something was still there, lurking just out of sight. The history uncovered. We moved out of that house a year later, and I was so relieved I could have cried. We settled in a new place, a modern apartment in a nearby town, all clean lines and bright lights. I felt safer there, but I never forgot that house. Years later, when I was in high school, I got curious. I started digging into the history of that old place, looking for answers. What I found made my stomach drop. Our house was built in the 1920s on land that used to be part of an old cemetery. Yeah, you heard that right. Back in the early 1900s, the town decided to expand, and they moved the cemetery to make room for houses. They relocated the headstones, but, well, you know how that goes. Not everything gets moved. There were stories whispers, really about people who lived in those houses, seeing things. Shadows in windows, voices at night, figures that vanished when you looked too long. One old article mentioned a family in the 1950s who fled our house after their daughter swore she saw a tall man with no face in her room. Reading that, I felt sick. It was too close to what I'd seen. I tried talking to my parents about it, but they brushed it off. Old houses, old stories, my dad said. My mom was quieter, though. Like, she believed me a little, but didn't want to admit it. I never pushed it. Some things are better left alone. The lasting impact. To this day, I can't explain what I saw. Was it a ghost? A spirit tied to that old cemetery? Something else? Something older? All I know is it was real, and it was in my room. I'm grown now, with a place of my own, but that night still haunts me. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I feel that heavy air again, that faint smell of damp earth. I'll wake up at 2 a.m., my heart racing, certain I heard a scratch, scratch, scratch from the corner of the room. I keep a flashlight by my bed, even now, and I never sleep with the lights off, not completely. I've read about sleep paralysis, hallucinations, all the rational explanations, but they don't fit. I was awake, sitting up, moving. I saw that figure, felt its gaze, smelled that decay. It wasn't a dream. It was there, and some part of it might still be out there, in that house, waiting for the next kid to move in, the next person to turn off the light. And that's my story, folks. The night I saw something in my room that I'll never forget, a moment that changed how I see the world. If you've ever had an experience like that, something you can't explain, something that still makes your heart race, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And maybe, just maybe, keep a flashlight handy tonight. Because you never know what's standing in the shadows, watching, waiting for the dark. Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon? Hey everybody, if you love stories that are strange, dark, and mysterious, you're in for a treat. This one's a fan favorite. And for good reason. It's creepy, it's intense, and it'll make you think twice about hiking alone. Today, we're diving into the legend of Bell's Canyon, a tale about a guy named Matt who went into the wilderness of Washington State and ran into something he can't explain. So, grab a cozy blanket, maybe dim the lights, and let's get started. The setup: meet Matt. He's 25, a hotshot banker from New York City. His life is all about big deals, late nights, and nonstop stress. Wall Street was killing him, so whenever he got the chance, Matt would ditch the city for the great outdoors. This guy wasn't just some weekend camper, okay? He knew his stuff how to read a map, build a fire, survive in the wild. He was the real deal. In the summer of 2016, Matt decided to head to the forests near Mount Rainier in Washington state. Now, picture this. Massive pine trees, misty valleys, and that huge snow-covered volcano in the distance. It's breathtaking, but it's also remote. Like, middle of nowhere remote? You're more likely to see a bear than another person out there? That's exactly what Matt wanted. He planned to hike deep into the backcountry, camp in random spots, and just unplug. No phone, no GPS, just him in the wilderness. The first night, Matt hiked about 10 miles on his first day, pushing through thick bushes and rocky trails. By late afternoon, he found the perfect spot to camp a small clearing surrounded by tall pines, with a little stream nearby. It was like something out of a postcard. He set up his tent, started a small fire, and cooked some freeze-dried chili. As the sun set, the forest came alive, crickets chirping, owls hooting, the wind whispering through the trees. Matt felt at peace. He climbed into his sleeping bag, zipped up the tent, and fell asleep. Around 2 a.m., something woke him up. A sound, not loud, but weird. A soft rustling, like something moving through the bushes just outside his tent. Matt lay there, heart starting to race, telling himself it was probably just a deer. The woods are full of animals, right? Nothing to worry about. But the rustling didn't stop. It got closer. Matt grabbed his flashlight, unzipped the tent just a crack, and shone the beam into the darkness. The light cut through the night, bouncing off trees and shadows. Nothing. No eyes glowing, no movement, just silence. He zipped the tent back up and lay down, trying to calm his nerves. It's just the forest, he thought. You're fine. But then, clear as day, voice cut through the silence. Low, gravelly, and chilling. It said, "Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon?" Matt froze. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. A voice? Out here? He was miles from any trail, deep in the wilderness. Nobody should be out there. Was he dreaming? He pinched himself, definitely awake. Then the voice came again, slower, almost mocking. "Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon?" Matt's mind was racing. Was this a lost hiker? A prank? But Bell's Canyon? He'd never heard of it. And why would someone be wandering around in the pitch-black forest, asking for directions? His gut told him something was wrong. Really wrong. He decided to respond, just to see what would happen. No, he called out, his voice shaky. "I don't know where that is, sorry." Silence. No footsteps, no rustling, nothing. Matt sat there, clutching his flashlight, waiting. Minutes passed 5, 10, maybe more. The forest was quiet again, but it wasn't the same. It felt heavy, like something was watching him. Matt didn't sleep a wink that night. He just sat there, eyes wide open, until the sun came up. The second day, when morning finally came, Matt was exhausted but relieved. He crawled out of his tent, expecting to find footprints or some sign of his late-night visitor. But there was nothing. No tracks, no broken branches, no evidence anyone had been there. He started to wonder if he'd imagined it. Maybe the stress of his job was messing with his head. He decided to push on. He packed up his gear, hiked another 15 miles deeper into the forest, and found a new spot to camp. This new clearing was even more remote, tucked against a rocky outcrop with a clear view of the surrounding trees. Matt figured he'd feel safer here. He could see anyone coming. He set up his tent, built a fire, and tried to relax. But as the sun went down, that uneasy feeling came back. The forest didn't feel right anymore. It was too quiet, too still. Matt sat by the fire, staring into the flames, trying to shake off the weirdness. Then he heard it again, that same rustling sound coming from the trees behind him. His stomach dropped. He grabbed his flashlight and spun around, shining it into the darkness. Nothing. Just shadows and branches swaying in the wind. He told himself he was being paranoid. But deep down, he knew something was off. And then there it was, the voice. Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon? Matt's blood ran cold. This wasn't a coincidence. Whoever or whatever this was, it had followed him. 15 miles through dense forest, in a random direction, and it found him. His mind raced. Was this a serial killer? A prank gone too far? Something not human? He gripped his flashlight tighter and shouted, "Who's there? Show yourself!" No answer. Just more rustling. Closer now. Matt grabbed a burning stick from the fire, holding it like a weapon. "I said, show yourself!" he yelled. The rustling stopped. For a moment, he thought he'd scared them off. But then the voice came again, low and deliberate, just beyond the firelight. "Aim that light away." Matt's heart nearly stopped. Why didn't they want to be seen? What were they hiding? His hands were shaking, but he lowered the flashlight, not wanting to make things worse. "Okay," he said, his voice barely steady. "I don't know where Bell's Canyon is. Just leave me alone." The voice didn't respond. But the rustling started again, circling his camp. Left, then right, then behind him. Matt's eyes darted around, trying to track the sound, but the darkness was too thick. For the next 20